Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time, we're going to take a look at Amazon's Relational Database Service.
RDS.
RDS, yeah. And I know what you're thinking, databases, that sounds super technical, right? But this actually affects, like, almost everything that we do online. Shopping, social media, streaming.
Right. Every time you click a button, chances are there's a database involved somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So today, we're cracking open the Cloud Guru RDS guide.
Great guide.
Yeah. And we're going to really, try to figure out how this thing works.
Awesome. And, we'll talk about not just, what the different pieces are, but why you'd choose one over the other.
Right. What are the trade-offs?
Exactly. Because understanding that helps you make good decisions.
So even if you're not a tech person,
yeah,
by the end of this, you'll have a better grasp of what's happening behind the scenes,
Exactly. A little bit of knowledge can go a long way.
Now, the guide kicks off by, it sort of compares RDS to, different ways of running a restaurant.
Yeah, I like that analogy. It's a good one.
So I guess, on-premise servers are kind of owning the whole building, right?
Yeah. You're responsible for everything, from the building itself to, the plumbing and the electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got EC2, which is more like you're renting the kitchen. You have more control, but you still got to handle a lot yourself.
Okay, yeah.
But RDS is like having a catering service. They take care of the kitchen, the setup, even the cleanup.
So you can just focus on
of food.
Your meal, which is the data.
Yeah, your application, the data, what you're actually trying to achieve.
And the guide points out some big benefits to this, right? It uses familiar database engines.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not having to, learn some brand new system.
Yeah, that's huge. There's already so much to learn in the tech world. Not having to start from scratch with a new database language is a big help.
Yeah. And AWS handles, all the tedious stuff.
Yeah, backups, patching, all the things you got to do but don't always want to think about. It's a huge time saver.
All right, let's get into the architecture. The guide uses the example of a website.
Okay.
And I like this. It goes back to that restaurant analogy, but a little different this time.
Right. So picture this. You've got your website, and that's this busy restaurant, right? You've got people coming in. Those are your website visitors.
Okay.
And then you've got the cooks. Those are your application servers.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the pantry. That's where all the ingredients are. That's your RDS database.
Okay, so the database is where all the data lives. That's the pantry.
Exactly. And just like a pantry needs to be organized and have all the right ingredients,
right,
your database needs to be set up and structured in a way that works for your website.
Got it. So what are the choices? What are some of these database engines?
Oh, there are several. Some of the big ones are MySQL, Oracle, PostgreSQL.
Now, I know MySQL, I think. That's used for websites, right?
Yeah, it's pretty popular, known for being fast and relatively easy to use.
Okay.
Oracle is for bigger, more complex stuff, financial systems, things like that.
More heavy duty.
Yeah, exactly. And then PostgreSQL is kind of known for being reliable. It's open source, so it's really flexible.
Okay.
So yeah, it really depends on what you're doing, what your needs are.
And this guide actually mentions that you can look up which features are supported.
Yeah,
in different AWS regions, right?
Right, which is super helpful if your website has visitors from all over the world.
Global audience.
Mm-hmm.
You got to make sure everything works everywhere. Okay, now let's dive into the heart of the matter, which is storage, because...
storage, the foundation.
Yeah, the guide breaks it down into 3 types, right?
It does. We've got provisioned IOPS, general purpose SSD, and then they kind of warn against magnetic storage.
Yeah, that sounds like the old school clunky one.
Yeah, like those old filing cabinets compared to those sleek SSDs,
I gotcha. So I guess for most of us, it comes down to provisioned IOPS or general purpose SSD.
Yeah, and it really boils down to how much control you want.
Okay, that's always good. Control.
And with provisioned IOPS, the guide mentions you can actually reserve a specific number of IOPS.
Okay, now I got to ask, what exactly does that mean? What's an IOPS?
It stands for input-output operations per second. Basically, it's a measure of how fast your storage can read and write data.
So more IOPS, more speed?
Yeah, think of it you know how we were talking about at the restaurant, if you've got a VIP guest, you want to make sure they get their meal fast, right? Reserving IOPS is like having a dedicated chef and a special lane in the kitchen just for that VIP. Guarantees speedy service.
Okay, so if I've got a website that needs to be super fast, really responsive, reserving IOPS could be the way to go.
It could be. You're basically saying, hey, I need this much performance no matter what.
Gotcha. So where does general purpose SSD fit in?
It's more like the regular dining area in the restaurant. It's good for most everyday stuff, handles things efficiently, might not have those guaranteed speeds like reserved IOPS, but it's often more cost-effective.
All right, that makes sense. And what about storage auto-scaling? Is that like having an expandable pantry?
It is. It's like, those shelves that just magically expand as you add more stuff?
Like in the movies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as your data needs grow, your storage can grow with it. You don't have to worry about running out of space.
But wouldn't that mean my costs could, get out of control?
That's why it's important to set limits. You can tell it, hey, don't go over this much. That way you're not surprised by a giant bill.
So it's like, yeah, it's convenient, but you still have to, pay attention.
Exactly. A little bit of planning goes a long way.
All right, that makes sense. Now, the guide also talks about these multi-AZ deployments. That sounds like a safety net, right?
It is, like having a backup generator.
Like a spare tire.
Yeah. It's about avoiding a single point of failure. What if the power goes out in our restaurant? Everything shuts down. Multi-AZ is like having multiple locations, so if one goes down, the others can keep running.
Okay, yeah, so it's distributing your data across different
Availability zones.
availability zones, yeah. Keeps it safe. I also read about failover testing. Is that where Amazon, forces a failover to make sure it actually works?
Yeah, like a fire drill for your database. They simulate a failure to make sure those backup systems actually kick in.
Smart. So you're prepared for, the unexpected.
Right. Even if it's something like an operating system update, you want to make sure everything's still going to work.
Now, the guide also mentions reader instances. Are those, extra sets of hands in the kitchen?
Yeah, so imagine if the main kitchen is slammed with orders, like everyone wants the same dish. Reader instances are like having a separate station just for prepping that one dish. They handle those repetitive requests and free up the main kitchen to focus on other stuff.
So it's about, optimizing the flow, making sure things run smoothly.
Right, and they're different from read replicas, which are like separate copies.
Right.
Reader instances are part of the multi-AZ setup, so they're always in sync.
Yeah, I got to ask about the budget, right? Because everyone's worried about costs.
Of course.
The guide mentions you can actually, stop a DB instance.
You can, to avoid charges.
So, put your restaurant in off-season mode.
Yeah. It pauses everything, so it's not for active use. But it's great if you have a database for, say, development or testing that you're not using all the time.
Smart. All right, and finally, what about security? That's got to be a big concern with all this data.
Huge. It's like having a bouncer at the door of our restaurant only letting authorized people in.
Right. So how does RDS handle that?
They've got tools like VPCs and security groups. It's all about controlling access, making sure the wrong people can't get in.
Okay, so it sounds like they've thought of everything. Performance, scalability, security, even cost optimization.
Yeah, they've put a lot of effort into making RDS a really powerful platform.
But for those who, maybe want something a little more visual or interactive,
Sure.
what else is out there?
Well, there are websites like the Clogaroo.in that have great resources. They might offer a different way to learn.
Yeah, I mean, some people learn better by reading, some by listening, some by doing. And this guide has been great, but there's so much more to explore. I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
We've only just begun.
Of Amazon RDS and really of data management in general.
Definitely.
And it's fascinating how much goes on behind the scenes of every website and app that we use every day.
It really is. It's the unseen engine driving so much of our digital world.
So stick with us. We're going to keep diving deeper into this.
There's a lot more to uncover.
In the next segment, we're going to talk about some more of the advanced features and configurations of RDS.
Yeah, some of the really cool stuff.
And how you can really fine-tune it to meet your specific needs.
Can't wait. Yeah, it really is amazing how much you can, customize RDS to fit your specific needs. It's not just one size fits all.
Right. It's I don't know, outfitting your restaurant kitchen with specialized equipment.
Yeah, you wouldn't use a pizza oven if you were making sushi, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so the guide dives into some of these specialized configurations and mentions something called a
dedicated log volume.
A DLV.
Yeah, DLV. That sounds very technical.
It does. It kind of is. But think of it like this. It's like having a separate notebook in the kitchen
Okay.
where you keep track of every ingredient that goes in and out of the pantry.
So it's all about record keeping.
Yeah, very detailed records of all the changes happening in the database.
Okay, but why would I need that much detail? What's the point?
Well, it's really helpful for applications that need to be super fast and reliable.
Mm-hmm.
Separating the log from the main storage can actually speed up the writes and prevent bottlenecks.
So it's like having a dedicated inventory manager. keeping everything flowing smoothly.
Hmm.
The chefs can get the ingredients quickly,
Exactly.
and the customers get their food fast.
Right. It all comes back to efficiency.
The guide also talks about monitoring performance, which makes sense, right? Like, you got to keep an eye on the kitchen.
You do. You got to make sure things are running smoothly.
Yeah. So what are some things you can, like, track? Well, there are key metrics like CPU utilization, memory usage, storage capacity.
All the vital signs.
Exactly. You want to make sure nothing's getting overloaded.
And I'm assuming Amazon gives you some tools for this.
Oh, yeah, they do. They've got this thing called Amazon CloudWatch.
CloudWatch?
Mm-hmm. It's like having a set of high-tech sensors in your kitchen, alerting you if the oven's about to overheat or if you're running low on a key ingredient.
So it's like an early warning system.
Exactly.
To prevent disasters.
Yeah, it can really help you stay ahead of any potential problems.
That's cool. And if you want to get even more detailed, there's enhanced monitoring.
Yeah, that goes deeper, gives you insights at the operating system level.
So if you really want to geek out on the details.
That's the way to go. It's like having a team of expert technicians who can tell you exactly what's happening under the hood.
Okay, now, backups. Are those even necessary in the cloud? I thought, my data's safe up there.
That's a common misconception. Yeah. Even in the cloud, accidents happen, hardware can fail, and, there's always the risk of, malicious attacks.
Oh, right, yeah.
So backups are still crucial, or your insurance policy.
Makes sense. So how does Amazon RDS handle backups?
Well, they've got automated backups.
Okay.
Which basically takes snapshots of your database at regular intervals.
So taking inventory at the end of each day.
Exactly. It's all happening automatically in the background.
So no more manual backups for me.
Well, not for the regular stuff, but you can still create manual snapshots if you need to, capture a specific point in time.
Okay, so before you rearrange the pantry.
Exactly. You have a record of how things were organized just in case you need to go back.
Got it. And where are these backups stored? Are they just sitting on a server somewhere?
You can actually choose to have them stored in a different AWS region for extra protection.
Oh, really? Why would I want to do that?
It's all about redundancy. It's like having a copy of your most important recipes stored in a fireproof safe in a different city.
Mm.
So even if a major disaster were to hit one location, your data would still be safe.
Wow. So even if an entire AWS region went down, I could still recover my data.
Exactly. That's the power of the cloud.
This is making me realize how much I didn't know about managing data.
Yeah, it's a lot more than just setting up a database and calling it a day.
Okay, so what about updates? Does AWS automatically update my RDS instances, or do I have to, manually install those?
Well, they handle most of the, routine stuff automatically, software patching, minor version updates, things like that.
Like routine maintenance in the restaurant kitchen.
Exactly. But when it comes to major version upgrades, those usually require a bit more involvement.
So they'll handle the cleaning and the oil changes.
Yeah.
But I'm responsible for the renovations.
That's a good way to put it.
Speaking of renovations, the guide mentions something called blue-green deployments.
Ah, yes. That's a clever technique.
What's that all about?
It's about minimizing downtime during those major upgrades.
Okay.
Imagine you have two identical kitchens in your restaurant.
All right. I'm picturing two identical kitchens side by side.
One is blue, one is green.
Okay.
And let's say you want to renovate the green kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
You simply move all your customers to the blue kitchen while the renovation takes place.
Okay.
Once the green kitchen is all upgraded and shiny and new, you switch everyone back over.
So the blue kitchen keeps running, the green kitchen gets its makeover, and then everyone transitions seamlessly.
Exactly. Minimal disruption, maximum efficiency.
That's pretty cool.
It's a great way to keep your restaurant, or in this case your database, open for business around the clock.
This is making a lot more sense now. The guide also talks about something called multi-AZ DB clusters, which sounds kind of similar to multi-AZ deployments, but maybe even more intense.
Yeah, you're right. They are similar, but DB clusters are designed for even greater scalability and performance.
So if my restaurant suddenly gets a huge influx of customers, a DB cluster can handle it.
Exactly. It's like having multiple prep stations and multiple chefs all working in parallel to fulfill those orders.
So if I'm expecting massive growth,
yeah,
and I need a database that can keep up,
a DB cluster is probably the way to go.
But what's the difference between a multi-AZ deployment and a multi-AZ DB cluster? They both seem to be about high availability.
They are, but a multi-AZ deployment is like having a primary kitchen and a backup kitchen ready to take over if the primary one fails.
Okay.
But a multi-AZ DB cluster is like having multiple active kitchens all working together to handle both read and write requests.
Okay, so more kitchens, more chefs.
More efficiency, more power.
Yeah. So it sounds like a DB cluster offers a higher level of performance and scalability.
It does. It's ideal for applications that need to handle a lot of traffic and need to be super responsive.
Got it. And do reader instances play a role in DB clusters as well?
They do. In a DB cluster, reader instances are like having dedicated chefs who only prepare dishes for takeout orders.
Okay, so they're handling the read requests.
Exactly. They offload some of the work from the main kitchens, the writer instances, so those can focus on the more complex stuff.
So it's all about optimizing the flow of work,
Exactly.
making sure every chef is working at their highest potential.
It's a beautiful symphony of data management.
I'm starting to see the art in all this tech stuff.
There is an art to it, definitely. It's about orchestrating all these different components to work together harmoniously.
Speaking of orchestration, the guide mentions something called parameter groups.
Yes, parameter groups. Very important.
What are those all about?
Think of them as the recipe books for your restaurant kitchens.
Okay.
They contain all the settings and configurations that dictate how your databases operate.
So instead of having to configure each database individually, I can use a parameter group to apply settings to multiple databases at once.
Exactly. It's like having standardized recipes that all your chefs can follow.
Makes things a lot easier.
It does. It ensures consistency and efficiency across all your kitchens, or in this case, across all your databases.
And it sounds like they're essential for managing large, complex deployments.
They are. They can really help you streamline the management process and make sure everything is running smoothly.
And the guide goes into detail about, like, the different types of parameters and how to customize them.
It does, yeah. It even talks about these things called formula variables, which are pretty cool.
Formula variable, okay, you're losing me a little bit.
Think of them like recipes that automatically adjust ingredient quantities based on the size of your kitchen or the number of customers you're serving.
Okay, so they're dynamic.
Yeah. They can change based on things like allocated storage or DB instance class memory.
So it's all about making sure the database can adapt to changing demands.
Exactly. It's about automation and flexibility.
And speaking of scaling, let's talk about RDS proxy.
All right, RDS proxy, this is a good one.
What is that all about?
Think of it like a reservation system for our busy restaurant.
Okay.
It acts as an intermediary between your hungry customers, your applications, and the available tables, your database. It helps manage all those connections efficiently and prevents your database from getting overwhelmed by too many requests at once.
So it's like a maitre d' gracefully handling the flow of guests.
Exactly, making sure everyone gets seated promptly and comfortably.
All right, so RDS proxy can really help with scalability and availability.
It can, especially for applications that have a lot of concurrent connections.
So if you're expecting a lot of traffic, RDS proxy can help make sure things run smoothly.
Exactly. It's like having a well-oiled machine in place to handle even the busiest of rush hours.
We've talked a lot about, like, managing and optimizing existing databases, but how do you actually get data onto an RDS database in the first place?
That's a good question. The guide actually covers a couple of interesting methods for migrating data into Amazon RDS.
Okay, tell me more.
One approach is to use AWS Database Migration Service, or DMS for short.
Database migration service. That sounds promising.
It is. It's designed to make migrating data from various sources, like your existing on-premises databases or even other cloud providers, right into Amazon RDS.
So it's like having a professional moving company that specializes in transferring delicate kitchen equipment.
Exactly. They handle all the packing, transportation, and unpacking, making sure everything arrives safely and in working order.
So DMS takes care of the heavy lifting.
It does. It converts data formats, ensures a smooth transition, all that good stuff.
That sounds incredibly valuable, especially for businesses moving to the cloud.
It is. It's a popular choice for cloud migration projects.
And the guide also mentions migrating data from an EC2 database into RDS.
Right.
Wait, so I can run a database on an EC2 instance? I thought RDS was all about managing that for me.
You can. Sometimes you might need more control over the underlying operating system or hardware, and that's where EC2 comes in.
So it's like building your own custom kitchen.
It is. But if you later decide to move that database into RDS, they have tools to help you with that migration.
So it's like having the option to build your own custom kitchen and then later deciding to hire a catering service to manage it for you.
Exactly. It's all about flexibility.
This is really showing me how versatile Amazon RDS is.
It is. It's designed to be a comprehensive platform, catering to all sorts of different needs and scenarios.
We've covered so much ground, from the basic concepts of RDS to the nuances of managing different database engines storage options, security configurations, even specialized features like blue-green deployments and RDS proxy.
We have, and we're not done yet. There's still more to explore in the world of Amazon RDS.
All right, bring on the knowledge. I'm ready for more.
So much to cover with RDS. It's incredible. It really goes beyond just the usual suspects, you know.
All right. You mentioned earlier that it even supports like IBM DB2, which I know is pretty big in the enterprise world.
Yeah, huge. And the Cloud Guru Guide, it doesn't just mention it in passing. It actually goes into detail about using DB2 with RDS.
Oh, wow.
Like setting up the instances, managing users, even working with those DB2 specific features like stored procedures.
Ovi, if you're stuck with a legacy system that runs on DB2, RDS has you covered.
You're not left out in the cold.
What about other, like, less mainstream engines? Does it support anything beyond the usual suspects in DB2?
Oh, definitely. The guide mentions support for MariaDB and Microsoft SQL Server.
MariaDB, now that sounds familiar. Isn't that kind of related to MySQL?
It is. It's like a spin-off, you could say, created by some of the original MySQL developers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It's open source, has a big community, and sticks pretty close to how MySQL works.
So if you're comfortable with MySQL and you're looking for, I don't know, maybe an alternative, MariaDB could be a good fit.
Yeah, and RDS makes it easy to work with. Setting up and managing those MariaDB instances is pretty similar to the other.
Oh, and then there's Microsoft SQL Server, which I know is like a big deal in the corporate world.
Huge player. And RDS definitely supports it with all the features you'd expect. And it's all within that managed environment, which makes it easier to handle those big workloads.
So no matter what size you are, whether you're a small startup using MySQL or a huge corporation running SQL Server,
right,
RDS has you covered.
That's the beauty of it. It's really a platform for everyone.
This is impressive. I mean, we've gone from like the very basics of what RDS is to all these different engines and storage options, security configurations, even those specialized features like
blue-green deployments?
Yeah, blue-green deployments, RDS proxy.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It really has. And it all started with that simple question. What is Amazon RDS?
And look how far we've come.
I feel like we could keep going for hours, but
we could.
I think it's time to wrap things up.
All right.
But before we do, I want to kind of like take a step back from all the technical stuff and think about the bigger picture. We've been talking about databases, but what we're really talking about is data, right?
Data, the lifeblood of the modern world.
And it's amazing how much data drives our lives.
It really is. Everything from, the businesses we interact with, the products we buy, the news we read, it's all powered by data.
In services like Amazon RDS,
yeah,
they're making it easier than ever to manage and access that data.
Yeah. In the past, you needed specialized skills and expensive hardware. But with the cloud, those barriers are coming down.
It's like democratizing data management.
Exactly. It's putting those powerful tools within reach of everyone.
So whether you're a developer, a business owner, or just someone who's curious about the digital world, understanding how data is managed is becoming increasingly important.
It is. It's fundamental to so much of what we do.
So to all our listeners who joined us on this deep dive into Amazon RDS, we hope you've gained some valuable insights.
And a newfound appreciation for the power of data.
Absolutely. It's all around us, shaping the world in ways we're only beginning to understand.
And it's only going to become more important in the future.
So stay curious, keep exploring, and never stop learning.
That's the key.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
See you next time
for another fascinating exploration of the digital world.